So today on Online for Authors, I'm chatting with Kim Gottlieb-Walker, author of Lenswoman in Love. Welcome, Kim.
I'm so pleased to be here.
I am super excited to have you. Really enjoyed the story. Before we dive in, and there's a lot to dive in about, I would like you to tell the listeners very quickly, what are they going to find when they open up this book?
They're going to get the vicarious experience of the best of the 1960s and 70s, from rock and roll, movies, the underground press. It gives the full experience, the protests that led to change. It gives you the full experience.
Absolutely. And then we focus particularly on one photographer, her name's Maddie, and then a love interest, right? And we kind of go from there. But before we dive in, why this story? Why historical romance?
Well, I had such a varied career as a photographer for 50 years. And it began with the free speech movement in Berkeley, which was my freshman year. And my mother had given me her little fixed lens 35 millimeter camera. And it was the first thing I ever documented. It kind of gave me the bug. And there was only one class about film at Berkeley. And I loved it so much that I transferred down to UCLA to major in motion picture production. And down there, they always had interesting speakers like Shirley Chisholm and Dr. Spock. And so I would photograph all the different people who came to campus. And my teacher in the film school used to do interviews for the underground press, and he would take me along to take the photographs. So I got to photograph Jimi Hendrix and all kinds of interesting people, Jim Morrison performing at a floating club that changed locations every week. I got to shoot Andy Warhol, and I have a picture of him smiling, which is very rare. And so it was just such an exciting career. After I did all of the underground press stuff, I was shooting a lot of rock and roll, and then I worked in movies. I lived in England for a year. I visited Pakistan. There were so many interesting stories, and I didn't want them to just disappear when I disappear. I wanted to get them down on paper, but I didn't want to write a memoir. So by writing a romance, it gave me a structure, and that really helped me. And so I wrote the first draft probably 25 years ago and stuck it in a drawer. And it's a good thing I did, because my memory was still really sharp. And I took it out about 10 years later to see if it was embarrassing or to see if it was a good read. And it had so much fun stuff in it. I decided to take it seriously, and I joined a critique group and went through it chapter by chapter. And I ended up rewriting it completely 3 times, because there's so much to learn. Right. And I kept getting such great input from my fellow writers. And the first draft made every mistake a person can possibly make.
Yeah, that's the way first drafts are. They're really kind of ugly people. They're not anything that,
And it was a third person omniscient and hop from head to head and all of that.
Right.
And the end result, after all of the rewrites, it's now in the close first person of my alter ego, Maddie Garfield. And it's all through her eyes. And it was really fun to write.
I'm sure that it was. How much of Maddie is you and how much is imagination? I'm curious. It's like when I'm reading it, I keep wondering, how well do I know Kim now?
Well, my life has been much easier than Maddie's, but she is definitely my alter ego. One of the reasons why I didn't want to write a memoir is because my life has been too easy, and that doesn't make for interesting reading.
Right.
So I had to give Maddie, some more challenges and conflicts. But most of the stuff that she faced is stuff that I faced and stuff that I did. So it all informed the book.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm wondering, when you're writing a book, I've written fiction, and I've also written a memoir, and I think I would have a lot of trouble writing something that kind of like put the two of those together. Like, where do I stop and my alter ego Maddie take over? And when is it okay to really expand upon a truth? Like, I would have a lot of trouble knowing where to draw those lines. Did you find that difficult, or did this just come very easily?
It came fairly easily to me. I kept some names the same in terms of the rock and roll world and the people she
Right.
photographed,
Right.
but some I changed because I had elaborated and invented some stuff and I didn't know whether they would be comfortable with it, so I'd change the name. But most of the actual experiences in the book are real experiences, like the whole Pakistan episode and the smuggling hashish. All of that is for real.
That just blows my mind.
All the things we do in our youth.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that I was talking with someone the other day who had a book where she was kind of the main character at times. And I just find it really fascinating because I would be so, I don't know, maybe too anal about wanting to hold on to, well, that didn't really happen to me that way. Or maybe I wouldn't have ever said that or whatever, but you need it to happen for the book to move forward. That I don't know. I think I might have gotten stuck with it. I think it's really fascinating that you chose to kind of immortalize yourself without it being you.
And I got to have some experiences that I wished I had had.
Yeah.
So it provided a lot of wonderful wish fulfillment. I mean, I never got to work on a Western the way Batty does.
Yeah.
It's something I always wanted to do. But having worked on a movie set, I knew what it would be like.
Right. Right. I found so much of it to be very, I don't know, detailed and gave me a lot of information that I wouldn't have known otherwise. You know, what it looked like behind the scenes. There was one scene in particular early on in the book. You are filming a demonstration that kind of turns more into a riot and you're almost hurt. I'm assuming that really happened to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And to see the riot from behind the camera in that way, not behind the camera like we saw it on a news story, but behind the camera from someone else that, you know, I know it ended up being put into a documentary and that kind of thing, but still we saw it from your perspective, which was different than what we see on the news or different than what you necessarily maybe read about or whatever. I just found that very fascinating to kind of get that behind the scenes. What was that actually like?
Oh, it was a real political awakening for me. I had always assumed that stories I'd heard about, police violence were exaggerated or, whatever. But to actually see it, to actually experience it was a whole new thing. And
Right.
it really woke me up politically.
Yeah.
And I was on a film crew and we were covering the peace demonstration at Century City. And there were, families. It was all kinds of family groups there, coming out to express their desire for peace. And it turned into a well-rehearsed police riot. And it was really shocking.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine that it was. Then you have, like completely opposite that, you're off taking pictures of reggae musicians, which is nothing like that at all. One of the things that you have the character say, and I'm assuming this happens to you too, is that when you are photographing your subjects, especially if they're like singing, and that's when you're taking these photographs, that you almost don't hear what they're singing. You're not really taking in the show because you're so focused on what they're doing, trying to get that shot. Does that actually happen where you filter out what's going on?
When I'm photographing, all my other senses just cut out. It's all in my eyes.
Yeah.
And so I've been to some amazing concerts that I didn't hear.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking was, wow, she's seen so many great things, but hasn't. Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
There was a whole afternoon that I spent photographing Graham Parsons jamming with Emmylou Harris privately. And he was dead a few months later. So they were very rare pictures and it was a very rare circumstance. And they make the most beautiful music together. But I can't remember what it was they played because I was so focused on just
right.
getting
And
more interaction.
So you put all that into Maddie, but then you give her this relationship that kind of threads all the way through, that we follow her along. So she falls in love very young and she kind of stays in love forever. Like it just never really leaves her. And this person comes in and out of her life several times. Did you have anything like that in your own life, or was that part completely?
Well, I'll tell you, my hero Jake is based on every man I've ever loved.
Yeah.
Got all of the best qualities of all.
Right, right.
So he's got my husband's sense of humor and his encyclopedic knowledge of music. And he's got the kindness of John Carpenter on working on the set, who always made sure I could get my shots when I worked on Halloween and Escape from New York. And even a guy in the film department when I was an undergraduate, I had a crush on who I never even spoke to.
Right.
So I was able to put all of those things together into the one character.
Right. Absolutely. Because you lived it, I'm curious if you had any real research that you had to do, or if this was mostly just memory.
It really was mostly memory. Yeah. I mean, I lived the period, so I didn't have to research it a whole lot.
That's what I figured. I love research. And so this would have been something, of course, for me to go in and do a story like this would have required an immense amount of research, because I don't know the musicians and I don't know the time period. Although I was growing up then, I was still very young, in the 70s. I mean, in 1976, I was a sixth grader, so I wasn't part of that. I was still busy with dolls. And so I would have had a lot of research. And so I was just wondering, did you ever have to go back in though and say, I need to look that up because I don't remember exactly when or where or how, or did you really already have all of that information down?
It was all right there in my brain. My second novel, I had to do massive research.
Did you? Okay. All right. So you know what research is, but this wasn't the novel. This wasn't the novel for it. Wonderful. I want to know, like, of all of the stories, how did you figure out which ones to pull and use for this fictional story and which ones to say, oh, I don't need to put that in? Because I'm assuming that given your long, long history of photography, that there are many things that you didn't tell us.
Well, I just chose the things that I felt were most vivid and that most clearly reflected the job I was doing and the nature of the times.
Right.
So, and what I could remember.
there's always that, right?
They say if you lived in that period, then you don't remember it, but I do.
Right. I just found it very fascinating. I was really intrigued too by the love story. So we have a 15-year-old who we say fall in love, but she really more or less fell in crush. I mean, at 15, she was taken by how, he was handsome, and he kind of flirted with her, and she liked that feeling that made her feel grown, and then she kind of held on to it. And I find it fascinating that you allowed her to continue hanging on to it and that it went somewhere, because I have a crush from high school and it never went anywhere. Do you know what I'm saying? And I doubt it would. I look now at that person and I still know them. And I think, that would have never been a thing. Never. Right.
Novels are such a wonderful way to have wish fulfillment.
Absolutely. Like, wouldn't it have been wonderful if that's the way it worked? But
of course, my daughter was, my daughter loved the book, but she just turned 40. And she said, you're going to get in trouble with this book because you have a 15-year-old kissing a 21-year-old. And in today's society, that would be considered child abuse. I said, oh, honey, you don't understand the 1960s and 70s.
Right.
And so I asked my publisher, do I have to rewrite the book in order to satisfy modern sensibilities about what's acceptable? And he said, no, just write a little preface that explains what the period was like.
Yeah.
So I wrote one and I put it right at the beginning of the book so that warn people and set them up for it.
Do you know what's interesting is I read the little warning and then I'm reading the book and I never felt, it never bothered me. I don't know why it didn't bother me. I think partially there was a kiss. And
Jake never exploited her.
No, he wasn't the initiator of the kiss. He wasn't, it's not like he found her in the middle of the night and drug her out of bed. I mean, there was nothing untoward, right?
No, Maddie asked him for kissing lessons, which is what I did for my first kiss.
Right. And so he obliged. And then to me, he did the most, he was so chivalrous.
He did the honorable thing.
He left.
Yes.
The next morning he was gone. He recognized that he was 21 and she was 15, and that this probably wasn't really the best situation. And rather than let it go somewhere it shouldn't, he left. And the next time they meet, she's now an adult.
Yes.
Right. And so personally, I didn't think you needed.
Well, I did it to satisfy my daughter.
Yes. And I understand that. I really do. I understand that. But it was interesting because I did read that and I thought, I never found it to be icky. Like it would have been if he had been a pursuer.
Right.
But I never felt like he was.
He was an honorable man.
Yeah.
And Maddie loved him not just because he was handsome and smart, and they shared the same sensibilities about politics and movies
and music. Eventually, music. Yeah.
He accuses her of being a folk music snob,
right?
And takes her by surprise, and he turns her on to rock and roll. So he opens a lot of the world for her.
Yeah. I don't want to give a lot away, but there's a point in there where everything gets really rocky, which always happens in a romance, right? You have to have the rocky part. And was that part hard for you to write? Because you've made him so good and you've made her so good and they're so good together. And then all of a sudden they're not. Was that difficult to find a why for that?
No, I fell into it fairly easily. I knew I had to have something dramatic happen that would, threaten her career, threaten their relationship. And it just seemed natural to me what I do with it.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm not sure. Are you a plotter or a pantser?
Oh, I'm a pantser.
Okay. You and I are cut from the same cloth. Good.
I actually consider myself a patchwork writer because generally what I do is I write the scenes I see most clearly first, and the connective tissue comes. So it's definitely pantsing, but putting together all the different pieces of the patchwork quilt.
I tend to start from the beginning and write, but I have no idea. Like if I'm writing today, I don't know what tomorrow is going to be on the page. I have zero idea. And if you said to me, well, what's going to be the inciting moment? I don't know. I'll tell you when I get there, and I won't know 1 minute before you do, because I'm often as shocked, I think, as the reader when they're reading it, is all of a sudden I'll be typing. It'll be coming up on the screen. I'm reading it while I'm typing, and my reading mind goes, as though somehow they weren't attached to the mind that was typing it up. It's like, it's a very crazy feeling. So
I had a much more emotional experience on the novel I wrote after that.
Yeah.
Because I put a whole lot of personal experience emotionally into it, particularly at the end, because I had been grieving for my father's end, and I needed to exorcise it.
Yeah.
And so I was able to insert that in my second novel. And even today, when I read that section, it makes me cry.
I think that's says something when we put so much of ourselves into a novel that we get the emotion that we are hoping that a reader gets, that it happens to us as well. I think that says a lot. So you've brought up other books. Let's talk about what book came after this one, Lenswoman in Love. And then what else are you working on?
Well, in 2019, my brother let me join him and his wife on a trip that they took to Florence, Italy. It was the first time I'd ever been there. And I fell madly in love with Florence and the Renaissance and the Medici. I spent every day exploring every palazzo and museum. And when I got home, the characters channeled themselves and dictated the novel to me, which was an absolutely fantastic experience. I ended up spending the entire pandemic in the late 15th century. And
not a bad place to be.
it was fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating. And it took, of course, massive research. And my heroine was raised in a convent. I'm Jewish, so this was a whole new area for me. And there was so much that I had to find out: how you get from one place to another, what you eat, what you wear, everything about it. And I used the actual history of the time to hang the story on. That was the skeleton for it. Right. And so my main characters interact with the real historical figures of the time. And it was just a joy to write. I mean, I think of Lenswoman and Love as being like really tasty fast food. It's fun to read. It goes down easily. I think of Katerina by Moonlight as being a feast, a gourmet feast. So two very different books, but both with very strong emotional and romantic elements.
Right. Oh, fantastic. Well, what are you working on now?
Oh, well, mostly I've been working on trying to let people know about Lenswoman. I tell you, when you become an author, marketing becomes as big a job as writing the book.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time and effort. And
it's won a dozen awards, and it's gotten like 5-star reviews. But getting the word out so that people can discover it is a real challenge.
Absolutely.
And I have, a couple of other things I've been considering. My husband is a wonderful writer, even though he hasn't written books. And so we've been thinking about maybe doing something together that would be a period piece romance.
That sounds fun.
From 2 points of view. So we'll see.
Ooh, that would, that's something that I've had a couple of people kind of float out to me. What would it be like maybe if you and I tried to write it together? And I don't know that I play well with other people. I don't know that my writing style would work well with someone else. I'm a pantser, which I think would be very difficult to work with someone else when you don't know where you're going next. Right. I also call myself a binge writer. So I might not write for 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not an everyday writer because I don't have something to say. Like this morning, I woke up, there was nothing to say. I'm not going to sit down in front of my computer and pretend. I have other things to do. But when I get the need to write, I might write for 3 or 4 or 5 days.
I'm exactly the same way. Exactly.
Like I'm not showering. I'm not cooking dinner. All of you leave me alone. What do you mean it's 4 a.m? I'm writing, I have no sense of time or space. And then poof, it's gone. I'm back to doing. And I would think that I can't imagine anyone wanting to partner with that.
I go in business like that exactly the same way. And thank goodness my husband will come in and say, Kim, you haven't stood up for 12 hours. Stand up and stretch. Or he'll bring something to eat.
Yeah, because I get so focused in, and it's like I'm channeled right now, and whoo, off I'm going. And then when it's done, I feel like a dried up stream. There is nothing, nothing. And it's like, okay. And I've read these cute reports of people who say, oh, I always leave a little bit at the very end of every day, so I have something to start with the next day. And it's like, yeah, that just doesn't work for me. I don't know. So yeah, I can't imagine trying to partner, but it's your husband. So maybe he would understand like the crazy piece.
I think you and I have the same writing style.
Yeah. The only thing is you patchwork. So you don't necessarily write from start to finish. You write pieces and then go back.
Because sometimes if you get stuck and you don't know what comes next, but you do know something that comes farther down the line, then it helps to just jump ahead and do that. And the connective tissue will suggest itself after a while.
With the story that you wrote about Catherine, that you said you felt like it was dictated to you.
Yes.
So I've had that experience as well, where I feel like I'm merely just a transcriber. I'm not actually an author. I have no idea. Did you ever try to insert yourself? Because I did. I tried to insert myself. I had something I felt needed to happen. And all of my characters backed away and refused to speak to me.
Oh, well, I've gotten into arguments with them occasionally.
Yeah.
I mean, now one of my characters is constantly telling me I should have written the book about her. So I had to write a short story to satisfy her.
So there's this, I don't know, it's like my characters are like, we've been telling you the story all along, and now you're trying to put in this piece, and we have no desire to do that. And so we're going to stand over here. And when you're done playing your little game, you let us know. And until then, we're silent. And then there's like nothing. I have nothing to say. And it's finally like, fine. And I put mine away, and poof, here comes the story again. So it's a crazy feeling, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. So you don't have anything specific that you're working on right now?
Oh, I have a couple of things, but mostly what I do is I'll get an idea and I'll write a little note about it, or I'll see an actor on TV who'd be perfect casting and I'll make a note about it. Or, I have thousands and thousands of notes all over my house.
Yes.
Every once in a while I go around and I gather them all up and I put all of the like things together. And unfortunately, I always put a dozen different things on a single page, so it makes it absolutely impossible. But I do have one sort of science fiction thing that I'm working on. I have, they all have strong romances in them. But from a lot of different periods, I wrote a short story about my grandparents who came from Russia, and their story, because it's fascinating. She was the most beautiful woman in New York in 1919. She won a contest from the Ziegfeld Follies as the most beautiful woman in New York, and they wanted her to join the Follies, but she had had a stroke when she was 16, and she walked with a limp, and so she turned them down. And my grandfather worshipped the ground she walked on, and she didn't really love him. And I got both of their stories from each of their point of views. When I was a kid, they would confide in me what they couldn't confide in their own kids. They would grandchildren. Right. So I've written that story from both of their points of view, and it would lend itself to a novel.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine that it would. Yeah. It's interesting that another thing you and I do the same is I wrote a couple of historical fictions, but my next book is not historical because I don't feel like I'm a historical fiction author. I feel like I'm a character-driven fiction author. I have a character that pops into my head, and then I have to write their story, and they kind of tell me what genre it is and where it's going to be located and that kind of thing. I've had a lot of people tell me that will hurt me, that, you need to be a cozy, or you need to be and that,
yes.
What do
you have to write a series and
right.
Book and then read the rest.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think if people really enjoy your writing, they'll follow you through the different kinds of things you write. I have been thinking about how could I possibly do a sequel to Lenswoman or a sequel to Katerina by Moonlight. And the historical fiction one intrigues me the most, simply because it means researching the history that I can hook it onto and taking it into the next generation. So maybe at some point I will have a sequel to that, but one thing at a time. I've got such a long list of to-dos.
Right. That's the way I feel. It's like I've got so many, and when I finish a story, I feel pretty much done. Like I've wrapped it up in a way that I'm now done, and those characters become pretty quiet. Like they don't need me to tell their story anymore. And it's like, I don't know how I would do a series. Like, I don't know. My characters just so far have not lent themselves to a series. They're done when they're done. So,
and it always amazes me when people say, "Oh, I wrote 8 books last year in the series."
Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
Goodness gracious! How does that even happen? Right?
My first took 25 years. My second took 4 years. It's
Oh my goodness! Is there a particular message that you hope people get out of Lenswoman in Love when they walk away, other than this great story, which is great, and they learn a lot, 60s and 70s, etc. But is there something you hope that maybe they take away from it?
I think they can take away from it that you should pursue your dreams and that you should stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah.
We made great changes in the 60s. I mean, people put their bodies on the line demonstrating to stop the war. And we did. We stopped the war. And there are a lot of demonstrations going on now. And I hope people will participate in them, because it restores the soul. it reminds you how many good people there are in the world who care about justice and who care about democracy. And we made changes in the 60s. We made huge accomplishments in women's rights and in minority rights, civil rights. And I never thought we'd have to fight those battles again. But it's worth getting involved, and it's worth pursuing your dreams. I mean, there weren't very many female photographers back then, but I did it. My heroine did it, and it's I hope that encourages people.
Wonderful. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, Kim, talk with you about your books, talk with you about your photography, about the life that you've lived, about things coming up, what's the best way to do that?
Well, they can email me directly, and I always respond to all my email. And that's kim@largedoor.com.
Okay.
And I will always respond. And I also have websites. I have one for my photography, which is lenswoman.com. And then I have one that's my author website, which is kimgottlieb-walker.com. And it also is called therenaissancewoman.net because I wrote it with Katerina in mind.
Okay.
And that website is, it's very chaotic, like my office. It has all kinds of interesting things. You can explore on that website for a long time, and you'll find everything from Renaissance art to my mother's best recipes. You just have to search around on it, and you find all kinds of great stuff.
Fantastic. Well, guys, I will have all of that in the show notes so that you'll be able to reach out to Kim and find out all about her. Go and grab Lenswoman in Love. You're going to love the book. It is really good. You're gonna love it. When you're done reading it, I want you to jump on Amazon and review it, because as authors, we need those reviews. And we know when we look at the number of reviews that we've had more than those books sold, and not everyone's reviewing. It's very difficult to get the reviews. And so run out there and do that. That's something you can do to help an author. And Kim, I want to thank you for being with me today.
And one more thing I'd like to say.
Oh, definitely.
It's never too late to reinvent yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
After 50 years as a photographer, I'm really happy now that I'm a novelist. And everyone has things that they've experienced that they can put into books. And they shouldn't be afraid to sit down and start writing. And I started a weekly chat for women writers over 70. And we get together every Tuesday on Zoom to share each other's, triumphs and challenges and cheer each other on. And it is a lively and amazing group of women. So, life does not end at retirement. In some cases, it's just beginning.
Oh, I love that. So for any authors out there who are over 70, reach out to Kim. She will help you get onto their lovely Zoom link. And I only have 8 years to wait, and then I can join the group too. By then she'll have it for those that are 80, and I still won't be allowed, but that's all right. Well, Kim, thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.